In this video, we are going to discuss about LAN security concept. The overview of this module is explain how vulnerabilities compromise LAN security. The topic titles are Endpoint Security, Topic Objective, which is explains how to use endpoint security to mitigate attacks. Then Access Control, explain how AAA and 802.1x are used to authenticate LAN endpoints and devices. Layer 2 security threats identify Layer 2 vulnerabilities. MAC address table attack explain how a MAC address table attack promises LAN security, and the LAN attacks explain how LAN attacks compromise the security. Now, in endpoint securities, there are network attacks today, network security devices, endpoint protection, Cisco email devices, Cisco email security appliance, Cisco web security appliance. In network attacks today, there are three attacks that are concerning us today, which is distributed denial of service or DDoS. This is a zombie coordinated attack from many devices called zombies, with the intention of degrading or halting public access to an organization's website and resources. The best examples here are the botnet, who that enter to the system and make it down. Then data breach, this is an attack in which an organization's data servers or hosts are compromised to steal confidential information. And the next is malware. This is an attack in which an organization's hosts are infected with malicious software that cause a variety of problems. For example, ransomware such as WannaCry and encrypts the data on a host and locks access to it until a ransom is paid. And the example in malware is the Trojan horses and many viruses. Now let's go to network security devices. Network security devices. Various network security devices are required to protect the network perimeter from outside access. These devices could include a virtual private network or VPN, enabled router, a next generation firewall or NGFW, and a network access control device. Then, a VPN-enabled router provides a secure connection to remote users across a public network and into the enterprise network. VPN can be integrated into the firewall, and the NGFW, or the next generation firewall, provides stable packet inspections, applications visibility and control, a next generation intrusion prevention system, which is NGIPS, and advanced malware protection, AMP, and URL filtering. The next is the NAC, which is the network access control. A NAC device includes authentication, authorization, and accounting, or the AAA services. In large enterprises, these services might be incorporated into an appliance that can manage access policies across a wide variety of users and device types. The Cisco Identity Service, or ISE, is an example of a NAC device. And let's talk about endpoint protection. In endpoint protection, LAN devices such as switches, wireless LAN controllers, or WLCs, and the other access point devices interconnect endpoints. Most of these devices are susceptible to the LAN-related attacks that are covered in this module. But many attacks can also originate from inside the network. If an internal host is infiltrated, it can become a starting point for a threat actor to gain access to critical system devices, such as servers and sensitive data. Endpoints are hosts which commonly consist of laptops, desktops, servers, and iPhones, as well as employee-owned devices that are typically referred to as bring your own devices or BYODs. Endpoints are particularly susceptible to malware-related attacks that originate through email or web browsing. These endpoints have typically used traditional host-based security features, such as antivirus or anti-malware. Host-based firewalls and host-based intrusion prevent systems. However, today endpoints are best protected by a combination of NAC, host-based AMP software, an email security appliances, and a web security appliance. Advanced malware protection products include endpoint solutions such as Cisco AMP for engines. Then the next is the Cisco Email Security Appliance. According to Cisco Talos Intelligence Group in June 2019, and 85% of all emails sent was spam. Phishing attacks are a particularly virulent form of spam. Recall that a phishing attack entices the user to click a link or open an attachment sphere today's environment, where according to the SANS Institute, 95% of all attacks on enterprises network are the result of successful spear phishing attack. The Cisco ESA is a device that is designed to monitor Simple Mail Transfer Protocol or SMTP. The Cisco ESA is constantly updated by real-time feeds from the Cisco Talos, which detects and correlates threats and solutions by using a worldwide database monitoring system. This threat intelligence data is pulled by the Cisco ESA every 3 to 5 minutes. There are some functions of Cisco ESA. Block known threat, remediate against stealth malware that evaded initial detection, discard emails with bad links as shown, block access to newly infected sites, encrypt content in outgoing email to prevent data loss. The next is Cisco Web Security Appliance. Cisco Web Security Appliance. This is a mitigation technology for web-based threats. It helps the organization address the challenges of securing and controlling web traffic. Cisco WSA combines advanced malware protection, application visibility and control, acceptable use policy controls and reporting. Cisco WSA provides complete control over how users access the internet. Certain features and applications such as chat, messaging, video and audio can be allowed restricted with time and bandwidth limits, or blocked according to the organization's requirements. WSA can perform blacklisting of URLs, URL filtering, malware scanning, URL categorization, web application filtering, and encryption and decryption of web traffic. And now, let's go to the next, which is the access control. In access control, there is authentication with local password, AAA components, authentication, authorization, accounting, 802.1x. With authentication with a local password, many types of authentication can be performed on networking devices and each method offers varying levels of security. The simplest method of remote access authentication is to configure a login and password combination on console. BTY lines and aux ports are shown in the BTY lines in the following example. This method is the easiest to implement, but it is also the weakest and least secure. This method provides no accountability and the password is sent in plain text. And SSH is a more secure form of remote access. It requires a username and password, both of which are encrypted during transmission. The username and password can be authenticated by the local database method. It provides more accountability because the username is recorded when a user is logged in. Then, the AA components. AA components stands for authentication, authorization, and accounting. The AA concept is similar to using a credit card. The credit card identifies who can use it, how much that user can spend, and keeps an account of what items or services the users purchase. AAA provides the primary framework to set up access control in a network device. AAA is a way to control who is permitted to access the network or authenticate, what they can do while they are there, which is they authorize, and to audit what actions they perform while accessing the network, which is the accounting. Authentication. Local server-based are two common methods of implementing AA authentications. It stores user names and password locally in a network device such as Cisco router. Users authenticate against the local data. And with the server-based method, the router accesses the central AAA server. The AAA server contains the usernames, password for all the users. The router uses either the remote authentication dial-in user service or radius or terminal access controller access control system, which is TACS plus protocols to communicate with the AAA server. With there are multiple routers and switch server, AA is more appropriate. In authorization is automatic and does not require user to perform additional steps after authentication. Authorizations governs what users can and cannot do on the network after they are authenticated. And in accounting, collection requires usage data. This data can be used for such purposes as auditing or billing. The collected data might include the start and stop connection times executed, commands, number of packets, and number of bytes. A primary use of accounting is to combine it with AEA authentication. The AEA server keeps a detailed log of exactly what the authenticated user does on the device. This includes all exec and configuration commands issued by the user. The log contains numerous data fields including the username, the date and time, and the actual command that was entered by the user. This information is useful when troubleshooting devices. It also provides evidence for when individuals perform malicious acts. And in 802.1x, the IEE is standard is a port-based access control and authentication protocol. This protocol restricts unauthorized workstation from connecting to the LAN through publicly accessible with ports. The authentication server authenticates each workstation that is connected to a switch port before making available any services offered by the switch or the LAN. Layer 2 security threats. There are Layer 2 vulnerabilities, switch attack categories, switch attack mitigation techniques. Layer 2 vulnerabilities. The previous two topics discuss securing endpoints in this topic. You will continue to learn about ways to secure the LAN by focusing on the frames found in the data link layer, which is the layer 2 in the switch. Recall that OSI reference model is divided into 7 layers which work independently of each other. The figure shows the function of each layer and the core elements that can be exploited. Network administrators routinely implement security solutions to protect the elements in layer 2. After layer 7, they use VPNs, firewalls, and IPs devices to protect these elements. However, if layer 2 is compromised, then all the layers above it are also affected. For example, if a threat actor with access to the internet network captured layer 2 frames, then all the security implemented on the layers above would be useless. Threat actor could cause a lot of damage in the layer 2 LAN networking infrastructure. And if we are going to recall the OSI model, the first layer is physical, then the next one is the data link, the network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and lastly is the application layer. And let's go to the switch attack categories. Security is only as strong as the weakest link in the system, and layer 2 is considered to be the weak link. This is because LANs were traditionally under the administrative control of a single organization. We inherently trusted all persons and devices connected to our LAN. Today, with BYOD and more sophisticated attacks, our LANs have become more vulnerable to penetration. Therefore, in addition to protecting Layer 3 to Layer 7, network security professionals must also mitigate attacks to the Layer 2 LAN infrastructure. Then, the first step in mitigating attacks on the Layer 2 infrastructure is to understand the underlying operation of Layer 2, the threat posed with Layer 2 infrastructure. After attacks against the Layer 2 LAN, infrastructures are described in the table and are discussed in more detail later in this module. Layer 2 attacks. The first one is the MAC table attacks, includes MAC address flooding attacks, then the VLAN attacks, which includes VLAN hopping and VLAN double tagging attacks. It also includes the attack between devices on a common VLAN. In DHCP attacks, includes DHCP starvation and DHCP spoofing attacks. Then ARP attacks includes ARP spoofing and ARP poisoning attacks. Then the address spoof attacks Spoofing attacks includes MAC address and IP address spoofing attacks. And the STP attacks include spanning tree protocol manipulation attacks. Then let's go to the switch attack mitigation techniques. In this, there are four solutions for this. The port security that prevents many types of attacks including MAC address flooding attacks and DHCP starvation. Then the next one is the DHCP snooping, which prevents DHCP starvation and DHCP spoofing attacks. And the dynamic ARP inspections or DAI prevents ARP spoofing and ARP poisoning attacks. And the IP source guard or the IPSG prevents MAC and IP address spoofing attacks. These layer 2 solutions will not be effective if the management protocols are not secured. For example, the management protocols syslog, Simple Network Management Protocol or SNMP, Trivial File Transfer Protocol or TFTP, Telnet File Transfer Protocol or FTP, and most other common protocols are insecure. Therefore, the following strategies are recommended. Always use secure variants of these protocols such as SSH, Security Copy Protocol or SCP, Secure FTP or SFTP, and Secure Socket Layer or Transport Layer Security, the SSL or TLS. Considering using out-of-band management network to manage devices, use a dedicated management VLAN where nothing but management traffic resides, and use ACLs to filter unwanted access. Then, let's go to the next one, which is MAC address table attack. In this, there are MAC address table flooding. All MAC tables have a fixed size and consequently a switch can run out of resources in which to store MAC addresses. MAC address flooding attacks take advantage of this limitation by bombarding the switch with base source MAC addresses until the switch MAC address table is full. When this occurs, the switch treats the frame as an unknown unicast and begins to flood all incoming traffic out all ports on the same VLAN without referencing the MAC table. This condition now allows the threat actor to capture all of the frames sent from one host to another on the local LAN or local VLAN. The threat actor stops MAC from running or is discovered and stopped, the switch eventually ages out the older MAC addresses entries from the table and begins to act like a switch again. Then the next one is the MAC address table attack mitigation. What makes tools such as MACHOP so dangerous is that an attacker can create a MAC table overflow attack variant. For instance, a Catalyst 6500 switch can store a 132,000 MAC addresses in its MAC address table. A tool such as MACOff can flood a switch with up to 8,000 bogus frames per second, creating a MAC address table overflow attack in a matter of few seconds. Another reason why these attack tools are dangerous is because they not only affect the local switch, they can also affect other connected layer 2 switches. When the MAC addresses table of a switch is full, it starts flooding out all ports including those connected to other layer 2 switches. To mitigate the table overflow attacks, network administrator must implement port security, and the port security will only allow a specified number of source MAC addresses to be learned on the port, and the port security is further discussed in another mode. Then, the next one is the LAN attacks. In LAN attacks, there are VLAN hopping attacks, VLAN double tagging attack, DHCP messages, DHCP attacks, ARP attacks, address spoofing attack, STP attack, and lastly is the CDP reconnaissance. In VLAN hopping attacks, a VLAN hopping attack enables traffic from one VLAN to be seen by another VLAN. Without the aid of a router, in a basic VLAN hopping attack, the threat actor configures a host to act like a switch to take advantage of the automatic trunking port feature, enabled by the default on the most ports. Threat actor configures the host to spoof 802.1q, signaling a Cisco proprietary dynamic trunking protocol or DTP, signaling to trunk with the connecting switch. If successful, switch establishes a trunk link with the host. Now, the threat actor can access all the VLANs on the switch. The threat actor can send and receive traffic on any VLAN, effectively hopping between VLANs. And the next one is VLAN double tagging attack. A threat actor in a specific situation could embed a hidden 802.1q tag inside the frame that already has an 802.1q tag. This tag allows the frame to go to a VLAN that the original 802.1q tag did not specify. And in step 1, the threat actor sends a double tag 802.1q frame to the switch. The outer header has the VLAN tag of threat actor, which is the same as the native VLAN of the trunk port. For the purposes of this example, assume that this is a VLAN 10, the inner tag is the victim VLAN in D6. And the next step is the frame arrives on the first switch, which look at the first 4 byte of 802.1q tag. The switch sees the frame is destined for VLAN 10, which is the native VLAN. The switch forwards the packet out all VLAN 10 parts after stripping the VLAN tag. The frame is not retagged because it is part of native VLAN. At this point, the VLAN 20 tag is still intact and has not been affected by the first switch. And the VLAN attack mitigation. VLAN hopping and VLAN double tagging attacks can be prevented by implementing the following trunk security guidelines. Disable trunking on all access ports. Disable auto-trunking on trunk leaks so that the trunks must be manually enabled. Be sure that the native VLAN is only used for trunk links. And the next one, which is DHCP messages. DHCP servers dynamically provide IP configuration information including IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS servers, and more to clients. And the DHCP attacks. Two types of DHCP attacks are DHCP starvation and DHCP spoofing. Both attacks are mitigated by implementing DHCP snooping. The DHCP starvation attack, the goal of it is to create a DLS for connecting clients. DHCP starvation attacks require an attack tool such as Gobbler, and the Gobbler has the ability to look the entire scope of listable IP addresses and try to list them all. Specifically, it creates DHCP discovery message with bogus MAC addresses. And the DHCP spoofing attack occurs when a rogue DHCP server is connected to the network and provide false IP configuration parameters to legitimate clients. A rogue server can provide a variety of misleading information: the wrong default gateway, wrong DNS server, or wrong IP address. The next one will be the ARP attacks. Recall that host broadcast ARP requests determine the MAC address of a host with a particular IP address. This is typically done to discover the MAC address of a default gateway. All hosts on the subnet receive and process the ARP request. The host with the matching IP address in the ARP request sends an ARP reply. According to the ARP RFC, a client is allowed to send an unsolicited ARP reply called a gratuitous ARP. When a host sends a gratuitous ARP, other hosts in the subnet store the MAC address and IP address contained in the gratuitous ARP in the ARP tables. The problem is that an attacker can send a gratuitous ARP message containing a spoof MAC address to a switch, and the switch would update its MAC table accordingly. Therefore, any host can claim to be the owner of any IP and MAC address. Combination details. In a typical attack, a threat actor can send unsolicited ARP replies to other hosts on the subnet with the MAC address of the threat actor and the IP address of the default gateway. There are many tools available on the internet to create ARP man-in-the-middle attacks, including DSNIP, Kane and Abel, EtherCap, Yersinia, and others. IPv6 uses ICMPv6 Neighbor Discovery Protocol per layer to address resolution. IPv6 includes strategies to mitigate neighbor and advertisement spoofing, similar to the way IPv6 prevents a spoof ARP reply. ARP spoofing and ARP poisoning are mitigated by implementing the DAI, and the next one will be address spoofing attack. IP address and MAC address can be spoofed for a variety of reasons. IP address spoofing is when a threat actor hijacks a valid IP address of another device in the subnet mask, or uses a random IP address. IP address spoofing is difficult to mitigate, especially when it is used inside a subnet in which the IP belongs. MAC address spoofing attacks occur when threat actors alter the MAC address of their host to match another known MAC address of the target host. The attacking host then sends a frame throughout the network with the newly configured MAC addresses. When the switch receives the frame, it examines the source MAC address. The switch overwrites the current MAC table entry and assigns the MAC address to the new port, as shown in the figure. It then inadvertently forwards frame destined for the target host to the attacking host. Then, the next one will be the STP attack. Network attack. Attackers can manipulate the spanning tree protocol to conduct an attack by spoofing the root bridge and changing the topology of a network. Attackers can make their hosts appear as root bridges and therefore capture all traffic for the immediate switch domain. To conduct an STP manipulation attack, the attacking host broadcasts STP bridge protocol data units, which is the BPDUs, then containing configuration and topology changes that will force spanning tree calculations. As shown, the BPDUs sent by the attacking host announce a lower bridge priority in an attempt to be elected as the root bridge. If successful, the attacking host becomes the root bridge. Then, this STP attack is mitigated by implementing BPDU guard on all access ports. BPD guard is discussed in more detail later in this course. Then the CTP reconnaissance. The Cisco Discovery Protocol, or the CTP, is proprietary layer 2 link discovery protocol. It is enabled on all Cisco devices by default. CDP can automatically discover other CDP enabled device and help auto-configure the connections. Network administrators also use CDP to help configure and troubleshoot network devices. CDP information is sent out CDP-enabled ports in periodic unencrypted broadcasts. CDP information includes the IP address of the devices, iOS software version, platform, capabilities, and the native VLAN. The device receiving the CDP messages updates its CDP database. CDP information is extremely useful in network troubleshooting. For example, CDP can be used to verify layer 1-2 connectivity. If an administrator cannot ping a directly connected interface, but still receive a CDP information, then the problem is most likely related to the layer 3 configuration. However, the information provided by the CDP can also be used by a threat actor to discover network infrastructure vulnerabilities. In the figure, a sample where and then Wireshark capture displays the content of the CDP packets. The attacker is able to identify the Cisco iOS software version used by the devices. This allows the attacker to determine whether there were any security vulnerabilities specific to that particular version of iOS. And now, that concludes our chapter 10, which is the LAN security concept.